My name is Adriana, and this is my presentation on my Costa Rica experience this past summer. I did a childcare program through an organization called IVHQ. So it was a volunteer-based program, and I volunteered in an orphanage for 2 weeks, and I worked with a host organization in the country which was called Máximo Nivel. Uh, I believe that the most valuable take-home message that I learned throughout the program was the country slogan for one, which is Pura Vida. What Pura Vida basically means is that everything's okay and everything's gonna be okay. So it's very common to hear people ask each other, "Oh, how are you doing?" And they're like, "Pura Vida." So another thing that I noticed was that everybody in Costa Rica is very hardworking and dedicated, and also education is a primary factor in Costa Rica. So public education is obviously free in Costa Rica, and a higher education is very common. They have a lot of universities throughout the country, and you can see that a lot of young adults attend these universities. And like I said, education is a primary factor in Costa Rica, so they want their kids educated and to be somebody in their life. Moving on, I believe that some of the most impactful experiences I had while in Costa Rica was my volunteer experience in general. So, like I said before, I did a childcare program in Costa Rica, and I volunteered at an orphanage. And the orphanage that I worked with was it had children age range from 6 years old to 4 months old, and they were all super sweet. These children have been taken away from their parents because of abuse or neglect or drug abuse. So even at their young age, they have been through a lot and seen a lot. What I basically had to do at the orphanage was basically just play with them, interact with them, read them books, draw with them, anything to keep them busy, basically. And it was an amazing experience. They were really excited to see me every day I would come in. In addition to volunteering at the orphanage, I volunteered on the Costa Rican Mother's Day. So what we did was we went out basically to the slums of Costa Rica, to a location where they Máximo Nivel teaches English to children, and we just took some supplies so the children could draw Mother's Day cards and just give them to their mothers. What I noticed about the second volunteer experience I had was that the children live in very crowded areas, and the areas that they live in, they don't look very sanitary. So it's very beat down, very, there's a lot of tin houses, a lot of houses right next to each other, and it's not very sanitary, especially for children who live there. But these are the conditions that these children specifically live here, so it's very different than children who live in the city. Some of the things that I learned about my host country was their customs and traditions. So I basically learned these things from word of mouth from my host family and from people who worked at Maximo Nivel. So at my host family's home, we had a typical breakfast every morning, and a typical breakfast included gallo pinto, and it was accompanied by sausage or uh, tortillas or whatnot. And gallo pinto is basically white rice and black beans mixed with vegetables. So it was a very delicious plate. Another thing about my host country is their currency. They use colones as their currency, and as a tourist, even I thought that some of the things that they sold in Costa Rica were pretty expensive. So I could only imagine how expensive it is for people who live locally. Um, Another thing that I noticed was that everybody was very respectful and welcoming. Everybody was curious to know where we were coming from and what we were doing there. And also, I learned while touring the city, there's a lot of street art everywhere, and not necessarily graffiti, but also a lot of drawings, a lot of murals that signify importance of the city, and it's beautiful to see that like they're not taken down just because oh, they don't look good or whatnot. Okay, as you saw, that video is a little glimpse of a typical Costa Rican dance, and we actually saw this at this famous restaurant they have in Costa Rica that gives you a view of all of San Jose, and it was amazing just to see their customs and traditions, and it kind of reminded me of the Mexican culture because we have a typical dance that's similar to this, so it was very nice to see. So moving on, I believe that a global perspective is very important because it makes you understand that there are differences around the world. It makes you more open to new ideas without judgment. So basically, going to Costa Rica allowed me to see that I understand that not everybody has it the same. Some people struggle more than others to get basic needs daily, and it just made me appreciate how basically how privileged I am to have a roof over my head and have a plate for dinner every day, as opposed to some people who struggle every day or who don't live in the same living conditions or don't have the basic necessities to go day to day. Um, I believe that the global perspective is important because it allows us to understand about others and address health issues differently, such as not judging somebody because they're accustomed to a certain thing because of their culture. So basically, what that means is some people are so they go so based off their culture that it's hard for them to see something different or something that we think that's better for them. So we can't go around judging people because of our beliefs. So I believe that the global perspective is important in that sense. Some of the differences that I noticed between the US and Costa Rica were significant. So I noticed that they are very natural with foods they eat and the drinks they drink. So at my host family, we were accustomed to drinking natural pressed juices. So it was interesting for me because at home we just drink juices from boxes, so it's everything's processed. But over there everything's natural. So it made a difference in in my experience in Costa Rica. Another thing that I noted that I learned from Costa Rica that's different from the US is that they don't have a military. So basically what my host family told us was that they don't have a military because they instead of funding for a military, they use that money for education since they believe education is very important. So what our host family told us was that basically the children of Costa Rica is the military of Costa Rica. And another thing that I noticed was that everybody accustomed to eat three different meals a day. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And breakfast is eaten like super early in the morning. So it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then seniors are highly respected in Costa Rica, and children are extremely important in Costa Rica. Like I said, our host family told us that the children are the military from their country. So I thought that was pretty cool. I feel like that there was some similarities between the cultures, not necessarily the U.S. culture, but with the Mexican culture. So Mexican culture, they accustomed to have children at home regardless of their age. So they're more than welcome to stay. But the U.S. culture is very independent. So as soon as you turn 18, you're expected to move out. But at my host family, they had their children living with them even regardless of their age. And another thing that I noticed was that the mother usually stays at home while the father goes out to work. Um, Basically, to conclude, Costa Rica was an amazing experience. It allowed me to open up to different ideas, and it was extremely beautiful, something that I had never encountered. So I will definitely back about going again and with more time so I can explore more things about Costa Rica. So, pura vida.